Here's what I want to remind you of. It is your job to speak up for what you need. It is your job to speak up for what you need. If you know somebody who is struggling to do that, if you are struggling to do that, stay with me. But if you know someone who is struggling to do that, you can share this with them so we can have a compassionate conversation about what we risk and how we actually come off in our relationships when we do not ask for what we want while still wanting it. Because make no mistake, the fact that you don't declare and say openly, this is what I need, does not erase the need. The need is still there and the need is not met. And that creates, for all of us, a series of emotional signals to ourselves and to other people. And then that also has an implication on the quality of our relationships and how much happiness we feel in life. And that betrays ourselves because, again, I have a duty to speak up for myself. And when I fail myself, that registers as a mark against me in my consciousness. When you sit in a room and you hear people talking about somebody who you respect and you consider a friend and you say nothing, you know how it feels on your conscience while you're sitting there and saying nothing, not speaking up on behalf of this friend? That's exactly how it feels in your consciousness when you refuse to speak up for yourself. But many of us just try not to face that so we don't feel the sense of betrayal. And others of us amplify that beyond healthy limits to get to a place of disparaging, our beautiful, soft selves. And I hope that when you walk away from this conversation live, you're so clear on the risk of not speaking up for what you need and asking for it, and feeling a lot more encouraged and emboldened to open your mouth and ask for what you need. One of the things we have to remember, especially as parents, and I'm talking to the parents and the mommies especially who are used to abandoning their needs and meeting everybody else's needs except theirs, one of the things you have to remember is that nobody can read your mind. Nobody's reading your facial expressions and understanding the paragraph that your knitted brows and your rolled eyes and your scrunched up nose and your raised lip and your twisting neck. Nobody reads the paragraph accurately. They make some assumptions, but they're not reading the paragraph of your face and your body language accurately. They're misinterpreting the cues. Just believe that. They are misinterpreting the cues, and you probably think you sent them like a very clear clue. Say, this can't work for you. They didn't get that. They probably got like a 1/4 of it, but they did not get what you actually meant. And so they walk away just as unclear about the need that you have. We expect so much of people and use those expectations to pull us out of the duty we have to speak up for ourselves and say what we need. So nobody's reading your mind. But as a mother, you can sometimes get caught, especially if you struggle with pleasing others and wanting people to affirm and support you. What you will find yourself doing is literally walking on eggshells, actually trying to read people's minds, preempt their behavior, read what their body language says about you, and try to avoid negative body language and try to earn positive body language, positive feedback, positive engagement from them. And so you find yourself contorting now to attempt to read the mind, but you're really not reading it, but you're trying to in order to make them happy or at least not make them mad. Right? And if you deal with people with very hot and high tempers, people who will just fly off the handle for no reason and nobody can talk to them, you'll find yourself doing that a lot. Just tiptoeing around and thinking that if you do it this way, you can get what you need without being frank. But one of the things I want you to observe and accept, they are flying off the handle because they don't want to give you an opportunity to ask for what you want. They want you to learn to not ask any time at all. They want you to eventually get the point that you do not request this of me. And so by getting angry with you when you ask, you think that it's the way you ask, and so you're trying to change the way, when really they're just trying to tell you, that's not something I'm going to respond to. And if you try to get me to respond to it, I'm going to keep getting angry and keep making you feel unsafe with my words, and perhaps they make it physical and aggressive. But I say all of that to say, mothers especially, and this is not something that is, spooky science. Our brains change to become very attuned to the needs of our children, especially our newborns. And so instinct is what we lean on in early parenting, early motherhood. Like the minute the baby leaves your body, the physiology and the makeup of the body and the brain are now looking at ways to protect this precious extension of yourself. And it will put the mother at risk and convince the mother that it's okay to take away the self-care instinct and the self-protection instinct and put all of that towards self-care and protection, care and protection rather, for your child. So it actually happens, you know, to change your brain so you're focusing on caring for the needs of your child. So I'm not saying that reading the mind in terms of figuring out what your child needs through instinct is impossible. It's actually natural and normal. Where it gets problematic is that you're walking through the house trying to figure out how to make everybody else comfortable and happy by reading their minds, instead of asking too, what is it that you need right now? What is it that's going on? How can I support you? Where do you have a need that's unmet? Instead of asking them that, you're also tiptoeing around to read their mind. And perhaps that is why you expect them to also be trying to read your mind. The second thing I want you to accept under this theme of having a duty to speak up for yourself, apart from accepting that nobody can read your mind, is that two, words are the best way to get clear. Words are the best way to get clear. And using the negative behavior to try and clarify what you feel is not working because people aren't reading, as I said, the paragraph. So words are the best way to get clear with other people. Words that ask questions, or words that are expressing where you are and how you feel and what you actually need to feel happy and supported, and sometimes safe, right? Because sometimes what we're looking for as a need is a sense of safety. So here's what we usually do trying to get people to read our minds. We shift into covert hostility or childish behavior. So instead of saying what you want, because you don't think that, or maybe not even think, you don't actually have the confidence to use words and express your feelings, that absence of confidence or the presence of a belief that what you feel is just inappropriate and it's nasty, it's ugly, it's dumb, it's fool. And so by sharing that, people might reject you and judge you and not want to be around you. So as not to seem fool or to be rejected or ostracized by people who you want to accept you, so as not to fumble with the words because you don't know how to express what you want. You probably don't even have the words to express what you feel. Instead of learning the words, yes? Instead of building the confidence by learning the words, we shift to covert acts of hostility. Instead of accepting that the feelings we have are valid, yeah? And sometimes that comes through coaching and therapy. But instead of accepting the validity of our emotions, we shove them to the side and lean into covert hostility. Now, for adults, spouses, parents, what that hostility might look like, and you may think you are, well, let's walk through it. What that hostility might look like is, for example, banging the dishes while you're washing and cleaning up the kitchen. Because the need you may have in that moment is for the people in the household. Sometimes you have big children and their hands work just as well. Sometimes you have a spouse and their hands work just as well. You are not the only person in the house who knows how to wash plates. But you have not yet communicated that you need help keeping the kitchen clean and you are assigning or delegating this job to somebody. You haven't said that yet. But you're hoping that people will get it. They'll read your mind while you're banging the dishes while you're washing. Fling down the pot cover, broke all the glass, them every time one fork I go in, I wish by you keep the utensils up. Anybody asleep have to wake up because they must know say you are downstairs vexatiously washing the plates, right? Now, nobody will come down and ask you, especially if you're the woman in the house, right? Why you wash the plate them so hard? Quite likely the woman bought all the plates, right? And then instance like that where the woman is always washing the plates, people probably sit down in the house wondering what's going on, if you have on soap, if you are rushed to wash the plate them, you know, why mommy, why babes, a so-and-so with the plate. They're not assuming that you're angry, okay? They're not assuming that you need help to wash the plates. They're trying to figure out, because they're not reading these cues that you're sending the way you think they're reading them. They're trying to figure out if something is wrong with you, you know? And you'll finish washing the plates, so you do the thing that you need to ask somebody else to do. You do it, you go back upstairs and you see them, and you know, you're sure them get the message now, and they have not even acknowledged what was going on downstairs or in the kitchen in the other room, right? Because they did not read the cue. But you have shifted, instead of using your words and seeing your feelings as valid, shifted to that covert hostility that is sometimes expressed in that way. Another way that we express the hostility is withdrawing contact, sexual contact in the case of your spouse, or just physical, warm, emotive contact with friend, child, children. Because that also is supposed to send a message that I'm not giving you my love right now. I'm suspending you from my love. You think that that's communicating the need that you have, and the need was probably help washing the dishes, person taking up their clothes off the floor, help sweeping up, wiping the house, help doing the laundry. Like, that's what you needed help with. You haven't said it yet. You haven't spoken up for yourself yet. So you're going to suspend them from the loving contact. And yeah, I bet that teach them a lesson. They don't even know what lesson you're trying to teach. They're trying to read your mind. They're going to come up short, because there's no way to really know what you want until you speak up for yourself. Words are the best way to get to clarity. And you have a duty to speak up for yourself, because nobody's going to read your mind. So you have to find your words. But one of the ways we shift into that childish behavior is the withdrawal of contact with people. And it could include ghosting, like not taking people's phone calls, you know, not responding to their messages, leaving them on read, you know, retweeting things that somebody in the circle says that relates to cutting people off, knowing that you have also cut them off, sharing stuff to your WhatsApp stories, sharing stuff to your Instagram stories, you know, making these kinds of, you know, remarks and comments that are supposed to be shady, but they don't get the message, because even when they ask you if it was them, you tell them it's not them, and so they move on to another assumption. So you're still not getting the need that you have met, and you're not communicating clearly what that need even is, for people to figure out if they can meet it, if they want to meet it, if they understand what you need to have that met, right? So that covert hostility. One of the ways it also shows up is making disparaging remarks about people or something that you're doing, and then when somebody says to you, what you say, what that mean, you go joke me I make, right? So let's say you ask somebody to do something and them say no, right? And you ask them, well, is there a particular reason? Because I find that strange. Or just want to explain to you why I'm even asking, because it's important. Like, you don't engage yet. You ask them and say no, and you walk away and you go do it yourself, or you attempt to do it yourself. And while you do it, you just say something. Come like say, you have to walk naked in yourself for somebody learn so them can wash clothes. When I them day, you know, but for just go on like them do this and not do it properly, so they can't wear dirty clothes or whatever the thing is, you say it. And when they look at you, they're like, what is saying? Say, Joe, my mom never gonna do that. Sean too sensitive. I say, every time I come in here, I have to cook. Sometimes I feel like I want to throw something in there for sending the bathroom. I say, Joe, you don't want to be cooking, right? But instead of just saying clearly that I would like to cook 3 days a week versus 4 days a week, or 7 or 10, or whatever is going on in the household, right? However many times it feels like you're cooking. Instead of just saying, I need help to execute this particular chore or task, you start making all kinds of comments and then pretending that you're joking when you're not really joking. Covert hostility. The messages are just coming in. I'm just seeing that persons were responding, guys. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, but thank you for joining. I'm gonna scroll to the bottom and say, whoa, I missed a whole heap. I missed a whole heap of comments. Ooh. Man. All right, guys, I'm gonna scroll way down to the bottom, and then anything that, if you said something and I didn't respond to it before, you can drop it now, because I'm at the very bottom of the comment thread, so I can see them fresh. But yeah, have you found yourself expressing covert hostility in any of those circumstances with your children, if you're a parent, or with your spouse? Some of the examples I shared a while ago was, for example, banging the dishes while you're washing the plate because you really don't want to wash the plate, right? withholding sexual contact or any kind of loving touch with your children. So you refuse to hug them, you don't want to kiss, you don't want to touch or nothing at all. You just literally just withdrawing all sense of physical contact, hoping that they'll get the picture that they're suspended. Or while you're doing something that you actually don't want to do, you make a comment that is clearly offensive, hurtful, makes people wonder if you're really serious, and then laugh it off, right? And say, do you remember so? When really what you're doing is expressing hostility because you refuse to express your feelings. So that's one way, that covert hostility. The other way is through resentment. And for mothers, this one is tricky to admit, because who wants to say that they resent their child? And in the instance of, when you have one child in the household, or maybe it's more than one child in the household, but you're sort of like a favorite parent, and so there's one parent who feels that they come second to the other parent, and they'll say it sometimes sort of in jest. The children may say it sometimes. That favorited parent will also say it, sometimes to tease or to act as a barb. But the sense that there is one parent who is loved less helps to build resentment between the less loved parent and the child. And if you are that less loved parent expressing hostility toward the child for having a favorite, or expressing that they have a favorite, you may be dealing with an unmet need that you've not clearly expressed. For example, you're looking for consideration, care, conversation with your spouse, let's say your husband, but your husband does not engage you with any sort of attentiveness, right? You're talking to hubby, and hubby's probably on the phone. You're talking to hubby, and hubby drop asleep while you're talking. You're talking to hubby, them cut you off and go and do something else, them watching TV. There's always something more important, right? So the connection and the care and the communication that you need from your spouse, you're not getting. But you may see your spouse giving that to your daughter or your son, maybe a niece or nephew, a godchild, the neighbor picnic, right? Like even a child can get this thing that I am unable to get from my spouse. You can easily build up resentment for the child that is getting their need met because there's a similar need that you have. That's sometimes how the resentment shows up for parents. And for mothers too, the resentment can come up because since you have had a child, you put yourself in last place, but you still have those desires and goals that you want to pursue. You don't know how to bring them back up into first place without feeling guilty. And so the child becomes that point of displaying the anger and the resentment you're feeling about your goals. You blame the child for stopping your progress. There are homes where children get told that the child interrupted the dream of the parent. You may not even say it in those terms, but the way you are communicating, the impact and the burden of being a mom tells the child that somehow they came to interrupt the life that you really wanted for yourself, that they are a negative on the balance sheet, that they drew your life down to 0 when it could have been 100 without them, and so they begin to feel like liabilities in our lives. And you have to be careful that your choice to put your dreams on the back burner do not traumatize the child through the resentment that you're building up because of your failure to express the need you have and to seek ways to have that need fulfilled. Remember, you have a duty to speak up for yourself. Say what you need, because people cannot read your mind. They cannot do it. And words, actual words, not the attitude and not that. That is not what is going to be the clarity that they need. You have to find the words.